Welcome to another session. We're on the Sacred Wound Medicine YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you would like to be notified of more videos like these ones. On this YouTube channel, we talk about things, plant medicine, psychedelics, entities, waking up to the spiritual world, what's going on in, the network of all of these things. And at the moment, it's really about my experience and what I've learned along the way. So welcome to the community Sacred Wound Medicine YouTube channel. My name's Charlie Giles, and today I'm going to continue on with a conversation that I had in a previous video about entities. And I did share one of my stories in the last video about my face-to-face confrontation with the alcohol spirit and what I learnt that it was doing to me and how it works, the reciprocal exchange required, what I was giving that I didn't realize I was giving for what I was receiving, which was to check out from the world, numb out pain, have confidence, all the things that you drink for, all the reasons why you drink for that. You sometimes don't really realize you are asking for it, but for that exchange, you have to give something in return. And that's all in a previous video. For those of you who are just joining me, I am about to step on a plane to go to Peru. I'll be in 3 months in the jungle doing some pretty intense training with plant medicines. So that's going to be very interesting. And of course, when I return, I will be sharing a lot of things about what I learned and my experience as well. So as I said, please subscribe if you would like more of these stories. Today, as I said, I'm going to share a little bit more about entities. I want to kind of dive in about what kind of entities that I was talking about. So the word entities, look, some people use the word demons. We tend to get more relaxed about using the word demons once you're in plant medicine ceremony, because you see them for what they are and it's easier to kind of refer to them that way. Entities can be so many more other things. When you are starting to work with plant medicines and using psychedelics, you will be visited by very many different things. I mean, not everyone in their first couple of scenarios, it's going to depend, everyone's different, but in my experience, I've had alien kind of beings. I don't really like saying the word alien, but kind of, galactic entities visiting and showing me different things. They were quite friendly and they just really wanted to show me a very big lesson about sacred sites, which was an amazing experience. And that might come up in another video explaining that, because that was a huge journey for me. Then, and then I've also had ancestral beings come and visit. I met one of my entire family descendant. It was huge, a huge gathering of my Aboriginal ancestry, which was just an incredible experience. And so I literally just met my entire family, who I've never met in the physical form. But then there's also other kind of spiritual forms, spiritual beings. You can have animal spirits turning up. You can have very kind of wise beings that can turn up to come, show up in a ceremony to teach, to help people on their journeys. And also dependent on who the shaman has as spirit allies. If you have a shaman who's worked for a long time on building their spirit allies, then they're going to have a big team. So with them comes their team. So you're going to be, if you have the ability to see, you might experience some of those beings coming into a ceremony, which is quite amazing. I've been blessed with the ability to see everyone's beings that comes with them. Blessed, and also I'm still getting used to it because it's a bit overwhelming, and there's certain beings that I don't prefer not to see, but that comes with the territory. So that's why I'm hoping this 3 months that I'm going to spend in Peru, that Maestro can help teach me how to, I guess, manage this ability that I have of seeing all the beings, not only the good ones, but also the ones that are out to kind of interfere and cause problems, and also the ones that are attached to the people who come to the ceremonies, because that's what got me into this conversation around talking about entities. So for me, it was kind of after my first retreat, everything that had happened to me, I just assumed everybody was experiencing the same kind of thing. It was, my first time using ayahuasca and working with the shaman and being in ceremony. And so you just kind of assume that most of the experiences are the same for most people. Well, obviously that's not the case at all. And it wasn't until my second kind of experience or session with the retreat that I started to realize that the things I was seeing and hearing, especially when I was trying to kind of share them with people gingerly, that not everyone was seeing the same things that I was seeing. Because as people were purging and as people were going through ceremonial process of the medicine working in them, I could start to see and hear these entities being kind of brought to the surface of the person's healing and getting more and more extreme. And I could see the beings that were being purged from them, which was quite kind of, oh wow, okay, I can see that this person has this entity that they're actually trying to get rid of. And then I was able to see, as the shaman would come over to try and remove it, I would see him removing certain aspects of it and breaking it up and having it removed. So it wasn't until after that second set of ceremonies that I realized that I don't think everybody is seeing the same thing I'm seeing. It was kind of okay. Like, it was kind of cool, but then it was also quite disturbing as well, because the difficult part for me was I'm terrible at focus, another thing that I'm planning on learning in the jungle. And, all I could do was just see what everyone else's stuff was going on. So I really wasn't focusing on my own self and my own healing, because it was, too amazing to watch everyone's energies going on in the room. Then the next round of ceremonies, I started to realize what ayahuasca was showing me, because I wasn't so much working on all of my own stuff just yet. She was still showing me how energies work, how entities are really working in today's consciousness, how they work in people's energy. She was showing me with different visions of the way that as a human, we get clogged. We clog ourselves with emotions, with food, with density of activities, density of thought, because all of these things have energies attached to them. So if we are meant to be a free-flowing being that's just always moving, energy is always moving through us, what happens is, as we get clogged, then we slow down, we get stuck, and that's when our, I guess, humanness slows us down. So let me try and put this another way. She showed me this through a vision. She showed me that if we are just simply an energetic form, so take away the human part, we are simply an energetic form. And that means that thoughts would just, flow through us, emotions would flow through us, everything would be constantly moving. And that would also mean that it's almost like if we had plumbing pipes, that the water of life, our breath, our energy would just keep flowing. But what happens is, when we eat, make poor choices with eating, and when I say that, that's not meant with any judgment. This is the world around us, is that we're constantly being bombarded with foods that are not good for us. And this isn't meant to be a health or a food advice in any way, but she did show me that things like poorly raised meat that has energetic blocks, so animals that are not well, their makeup is changed and they're unhappy, so they have a density about them. She said that's not healthy in our body, because it will slow our body down and clog our health. Also things like dairy and cheese that are really clogging. Like if you think about it, they're clogging type material. Again, this isn't health advice. I'm just telling you what she showed me. And then, of course, being sedentary, so not moving around too much, being sitting in front of a computer too often, and not moving the body. And of course, then getting stuck with the density of energies that surround us that are low vibrational. And they can be things that are very common in today's society, whether it's, because music is very, very important. Oh my goodness, the energy of music is incredible. She's shown me this visually, that everything that you listen to has its own energetic vibration, and it will carry the energy of the person singing or the person creating the music. So if that person who is angry or depressed or just, in a really bad state of energy, and they're singing those words, then those words are going to have an effect on you. That energy is going to have an effect on you. Not only did she show me things about the music energy, which is why the icaros that the shamans sing are so important, because they actually carry a thread of energetic healing. They ask the plants and how to remove energy from you and how to heal. But it's also what we see. So things on television, if you're, watching pornography, if you're watching lots of violent television, the news that has that constant thread of just fear-based stuff, then all of that as an energetic ball, right? Or the energetic thread that we're listening to and feeding our souls with all the time is actually going to be feeding all that low vibrational, dense energy. What ayahuasca was showing me about us as spiritual beings, trying to maintain the free-flowing spiritual body that we have. Then you add the human component, and of course that brings us down to a certain density level. Then when you add our emotions that we don't like letting flow through us, our emotions that we trap in our society because we don't have time to deal with them, the emotions that when things happen to us, when traumas happen to us, we pretend we're okay and we don't need to heal from them, then all of these things piled in us is what clogs our plumbing, right? She showed me this very visually. It was quite amazing. And then she added the layer of entities, and she said, this is where the entities can do the most amount of work for themselves, or have the most amount of fodder to feed from, because it's that trappedness, it's the stuckness and the density that kind of is their place of feed. There's a place of feeding. So I'm kind of trying to give you a visual of how that works, because that's the visual she gave me. She said, it's not that we're going to be in a world where entities don't exist, but the less feed we give them, then the easier it is for us to continue being a free-flowing spiritual body. So by changing or being careful about what we listen to, being careful about what we watch, being more selective about the people that we choose to hang around and be around and listen to. We're not people-pleasing just for the sake of it. Cleaning up our diet so that we're not eating foods that are causing our body to be stagnant. Keeping on moving. All the things that we actually know are good for healthy and well-being, but another reason to do it for our spiritual well-being. That's the part that I found to be more helpful, because when I saw that this idea of hanging on to our emotions is really what helps feed, these other beings, it kind of gave me another reason to really keep working on myself. I'll give you an example of one of my own entities that I had to work on being removed. And this took this took a couple of years. And that's because the work that I was doing in between was very difficult for me to just stop doing, right? If it was as easy to just eat healthy and start exercising and live in a bubble where everything is great, well, then of course we'd all be doing it, but it's not. We're human and we have our habits and we have our comfort things, and, you know, nothing changes overnight. And plant medicine certainly doesn't allow you to change overnight. Here I am, I've had this amazing experience. Ayahuasca's shown me the way of a spiritual body. She's shown me the way of humanity. She's shown me the reason why we need to heal. She's shown me the entities and how they all work. And I go home and I go, oh, okay, that's great, but I can't change overnight. Okay. So it was, and then of course, and then I've learned that I have my own entity that I needed to get rid of, which was living in my heart chakra. That wasn't going to go anywhere quickly. Now, the shaman had removed it, but the thing was, what I had to do was then fill it with love. Because when you have an entity removed, it leaves a space in your energy body of where it's been living, because it's been taking up the energy there. So you've got like this hole. And the problem with that is it's kind of like a neon sign saying, hey, there's a space in this person. They don't seem to want it. So do you want it? Now, it's not that I didn't want it. It's just that I had to fill it with love. And that wasn't something that I was big on, because my whole trauma was revolved around the fact that I didn't love myself. I felt abandoned my entire life. And because I felt abandoned my entire life, I felt that I wasn't worthy. So it wasn't like I was just going to overnight love myself. I mean, you can do that. But I, you know, tried to work on it as best as I could. But, you know, then life happens and I can change a little bit, but quite obviously my routine and my habits hadn't changed completely. And by the time I'd gotten to the next ceremony, I had already had that entity back again. And what was interesting was that I actually learned to converse with it. And I started to understand. It was basically showing me that humanity has such a low self-worth that it's incredibly easy for entities to feed off people and their low self-worth. There's such a huge level of self-hatred that it was really upsetting to me. And I cried and cried and cried, and I did a huge purging of the amount of self-hatred that I had for myself. I couldn't believe the way I felt about myself. It was awful. And ayahuasca showed me that. She showed me as a way of hearing myself, talking to myself about how hard I judged myself. And it was really awful. I felt really bad that I had thought of myself so unworthy. So it was actually an amazing ceremony. I mean, I still had this entity, but in some way it was showing me that it was easy to live off me because I had such a low self-worth. And then in the same hand, ayahuasca is taking me as a journey from a little girl and showing me all these spaces where the people that had left me and what I had figured abandoned me weren't abandoning me because of me. It wasn't because of my worth. It was because of their own story and their own inability to stick around. It had nothing to do with me. But she was showing me my life pattern of abandonment, and that my soul had chosen that because of this huge lesson of self-worth that I had to learn. My soul had chosen to, you know, be constantly abandoned in these areas of my life, so-called abandoned, because in reality, it was to prove to me that it wasn't ever about me, that my worth isn't determined by somebody else's choices of staying or going. My worth doesn't change. I am born worthy, as we all are. We are all born worthy, beautiful, amazing souls with incredible purpose of just experiencing life. But we allow other people to make us think that we're not worthy because of their stuff. The people who had left me from a very young age, like my dad left when I was 5, and that broke my heart. But he left because he was an alcoholic husband and my mum couldn't handle it anymore. She was getting beaten up. He wasn't good to be around. He was very unhealthy to be around. I was frightened of him most of the time. But when you're 5, you don't understand what's going on. He was still my dad. So when he just left and I didn't know why he didn't come back and visit, I just assumed it was because he just didn't want to be around me anymore or my brothers anymore. You just assume it's because you're not good enough. And then you take that story with you and you keep it going, and then you look for proof subconsciously. And so this continued to happen. My brothers chose a different path. They chose to leave. They were much older than me, so they left. And then, you know, my mum went on to remarry, and then, you know, that ended up being a whole other horrible experience. And there was this continuous pattern of people choosing something other than me in my story. But as I said, ayahuasca showed me that none of that was ever true, and that my worthiness didn't come down to other people's choices of life. It never changed. I'm always worthy. I still am worthy, just as we all are. We're born worthy of love. So where am I going with this? Well, what I'm saying is that the entity that I had living in my heart chamber, completely taking up space and not allowing me to give love to anyone, including myself, was teaching me how unhealthy my thought pattern was, how unhealthy my belief system was around how unworthy I thought I was, how unlovable I thought I was, and how frightened of loving other people I was. I never wanted to love someone else too much because they would eventually leave and then I would be broken. I was too fragile. So in the end, this entity became kind of a way of being complete, like my ongoing teacher. The interesting part was it showed me the story of how it first entered my soul. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, because I know that entities don't necessarily tell you the truth because they tell you different things to also survive. So they're a little bit shifty. But it was interesting. It did show me that in a previous life, as a very young girl, the love of my life was killed. He was murdered. And because I couldn't take it anymore, I hung myself. And before I hung myself, I vowed that I would never love again. Now, what the entity showed me was that a vow, your words are incredibly powerful. This is something I really want you to listen to. What you say with your words are for an eternity. Words are timeless. So if you make a vow, it really is until forever, depending on your specific words. So a previous life of me vowed into the ether at a time when she was tying a rope around her neck and hanging herself that she would never love again. No full stop. So that's perfect. That's perfect language for a demon, for an entity to say, that sounds fantastic because I want to be in a place where you don't love because that's painful. A trauma, taking my own life, is also a good opening for an entity to come in, because trauma and big stuff like that, especially suicide, is a great opening. And, you know, straight into my heart, I'm never going to love again. Now, as I said, this is the picture and the image that that entity showed me. It was in a time when I was also working on removing it, but it did dump a load of grief on me that I processed and alchemized, which was the other life form that showed up in front of me. She came, the other life of myself. I hope you're following what I'm saying. So the version of me in this other life actually confronted me and asked for forgiveness and said I had no idea, you know, that me saying these words would cause you this much pain. And I forgave her. And then it was an incredibly beautiful healing experience. We cried and cried and cried. And I knew that the grief that I was crying wasn't mine, but it was an amazing emotional release. This is something that I would call kind of an ancestral, you know, previous life healing that you can experience using plant medicine. Now, you can do this with different journeys as well. You don't have to have plant medicine. if you have a good shaman that can do a beautiful journey with you, or some kind of hypnotherapy with you, these kind of healings can happen as well. It was incredibly powerful. But as I said, I learned so much about entities during that process. And I kind of learned to understand the one that I had been carrying for such a long time, and I don't know how many lifetimes. What happened though was, whilst I released a huge amount of energy of that particular entity, I still kind of had a root system of it. So the other part that I learned about entities was that you can remove a certain aspect of them, but there will always be a little kind of tether, a little kind of root system, like a plant that you pull it, but you still leave some roots behind. So that root system, if I continue to feed it with more unhealthy self-worth thoughts, more self-hatred, behaviors and habits that aren't healthy, then of course it's going to grow back, and I will just keep feeding it and feeding it. Now, I didn't continue to do that, although it did come back a little bit, but I was able to recognize it quite quickly. And through another ceremony, I was able to release it again. Actually, I did a Bobinsana Dayata. And the Bobinsana Dayata, Bobinsana is a master plant. She's a beautiful, beautiful plant, which is very heart opening. She's very powerful with the ability to also bring on the kind of, let you know what kind of darkness that you have still within you. And I was able to release the rest of it through that. That was, one of the major entities that I had been carrying for quite some time. But as I said, it taught me so much about myself. It taught me so much about how damaging self-judgment is, how damaging it is to have a low self-worth, and how that changes the relationships that you're in your lifetime. It completely changed the relationship that I had with my husband, because I was constantly pushing him away, or basically waiting for him to leave, or finding reasons why he probably will. Whereas, all of that's gone for me now. I don't live from that space of a heart that doesn't feel worthy anymore. But that's taken a long time, right? That's taken a lot of work for me to be focused on continuously checking myself and being kind to myself, and constantly on the path of saying, I know that this is something that I will fall back into. And I know that as I'm about to go into deeper training, it will come up again. It's my constant wound that I need to always be aware of. My self-worth. Is my self-worth playing into this conversation that I'm having? Am I looking for validation because I don't think I'm worthy? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I giving of myself in the right way, or do I need something back because of my self-worth? So for me, it's a constant review of where I'm at. And I'm not afraid of the entity thing anymore, because I know that I can get rid of them. I know that that just means that I need work in another area. And I know that that just keeps me focused on being in a high vibrational lifestyle. Not permanently, but just a work in progress. I'm hoping that by sharing that story, that's kind of helped understand the value of this, of looking at entities in this way, how, how understanding them can actually help you better yourself, can actually help you improve your energy space. Now, I am also going to say that there is a particular evil out there as well. I have seen clients who have particularly that are on this earth to really alchemize some nasty, nasty stuff, from people who have dabbled in, awful satanic rituals, awful kind of, sexual trafficking, pedophilia, all of these things that are really awful, low vibrational, and have a huge thread of evil in them, and they get passed from person to person. So unfortunately, talking about entities doesn't allow us to negate this real dark form of evil that does come up in plant medicine ceremonies, because it doesn't pick and choose. If someone has something like that, it's going to come up. And that's when you hope you have the shaman around that knows how to get rid of it and remove them. But they are usually a lot trickier because they're bigger, right? And because it's all about the reason why the person has them in the first place. So that's what can hold them in a person. It depends on how and why that person has it in the first place and how that can be broken. You know, how do you view yourself and check in on your own energy? You know, energy is a whole big topic, right? How do you keep yourself clear? How do you create boundaries? I think it's just starting by acknowledging the fact that we're energetic beings kind of first and human beings second, and prioritize energy as something that is way more contagious and sharing than anything else that you probably imagine. That you're constantly sharing energy with people, constantly. You're sharing people with, you're sharing people when you communicate with someone, whether it's verbally, whether it's via text message, whether it's via email, whether it's on the phone, face to face. That's an energy exchange. You will feel someone's energy. If someone's written you an angry text message, you will feel the anger, right? That's an energetic exchange. So the first step you can make is value the fact that you are an energetic being, and put in the forefront of your mind that what is the energetic exchange I'm going to have with someone, or have with, you know, what you're watching, what you're listening to. Is it making me feel better about myself, or is it actually keeping me feeling What about noticing what you're eating? Just noticing. I'm not asking you to change what you're eating, but just notice what you're eating. And does it make you feel or does it make you feel better and lighter? So if you just start by noticing the different energetic changes that you have in your life on a day-to-day basis, then that's the first place to start. And then what can you do to change some of the small things? That's why we talk about stuff like self-care, but on another level, you know, having a bath at the end of the day with Epsom salts is a great way to cleanse your energetic body and to really just kind of become in the present moment, relax, and clean off whatever energy that you've brought home from other people, especially if you work in an office or if you go out to the mall or wherever you're going shopping. And then the other thing is, what are you listening to and watching or reading? What are you feeding into your energetic body? How uplifting is it? How moving is it? How free-flowing is it? And then, of course, you know, buying different things that can help cleanse the energetic space that you're in from a day-to-day basis, because that can cleanse what you've brought in. It can cleanse what other people have brought in, and it can help to help you start to tune in to how you're feeling before and after a cleansing process. If you start to have things where you're clearing yourself and you feel irritable about a cleansing, or if you kind of feel like, oh, I couldn't be bothered cleansing today, I would start to wonder about that. That might be a part of yourself that is wanting you to stop healing, that is wanting you to stop cleaning, stop clearing. They can sometimes be some signs that you have deeper healing needed, entities that don't want you to do things that are good for you. So yeah, that there's some things to think of, what to look out for. And like I said, don't be afraid. You know, it's all about healing work. Healing work is big, but on the other side is amazing. You don't get stuck anymore. You're able to do the things that you wanted to do in your life. You have way more feeling of freedom about the life that you're choosing for yourself. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments in the comment section or email me. Like I said, if you are interested in more of this topic, and if this has just opened up a whole bunch of more things for you, then please let me know. I'd be happy to hear from you.